Today on Straight Talk Africa, a discussion on the recent presidential election in Cameroon. Did voters have a fair chance to make their choice? Were conditions favorable for all presidential candidates? That's coming up next, right here on Straight Talk Africa. Hello and welcome to Straight Talk Africa, live from the Voice of America headquarters in Washington. I'm Vincent Makori, in for Ssali. Today we're discussing the recent presidential elections in Cameroon. Well, Cameroon's longtime leader Paul Biya officially began his 7th consecutive term in power after a constitutional council he appointed rejected all 18 petitions challenging the results of the nation's recent election. Viewers Paul Biya has our report.
At age 85, Paul Biya, Cameroon's president since 1982, is one of the world's oldest heads of state. He recently won a re-election with 71% of the vote. His strongest challenger, Maurice Kamto, received 14%. Biya's October 7th poll victory comes amid claims from opposition candidates that the election was marred by fraud, including ballot stuffing and voter intimidation. But Biya's supporters disagree.
Paul Biya is a guarantor of peace, success, prosperity, and living together. That's why we've chosen him as our president. Am I telling the truth? Yes, I'm telling the truth. Yes.
The Constitutional Council rejected all 18 petitions claiming fraud, giving the long-time Cameroonian leader a 7th term in office. It's possible that President Biya could remain in power until at least the age of 92. Amid post-election candidate claims, some opposition leaders rushed to declare themselves as the legitimate winners of the vote. Candidate Maurice Kamto pronounced himself the winner before even the first results were announced.
J'en appelle au sens républicain.
On this, I call on the Republic's defense force,
des forces de défense,
forces of law and order, to positively accompany this intense historical moment which the people of Cameroon have collectively bestowed on us memorable. My arms are open for us to work together for our national renaissance jointly.
Kamto, whose claims of victory were short-lived, alleged that 6 of the 11 members of the Constitutional Council were biased in Biya's favor and could not hand him the success that he claims he rightly deserves. Local and African Union election observers said the poll was mostly successful, with minor irregularities that didn't affect the outcome of the vote, since they say he allegedly controlled the process. Many Cameroonian citizens remained worried about the future of their beloved country and want to see him do more to unite the country. Critics say despite this win, President Biya faces tough times ahead.
What's happening in North and South is very sad. Many people are dying, people are suffering, villages are burned. It's not a laughing matter. It's not a matter of elections. It's a matter of survival for the Cameroonian people. And I hope the international organizations will do just that.
As tens of thousands of Cameroonians are displaced by a bloody separatist insurgency in the English-speaking Northwest and Southwest continue to push for secession. The chaos began in October 2016 when lawyers and teachers in English-speaking cities went on strike in protest at having to use French in schools and courtrooms. Clashes broke out in the following weeks and some protesters were killed. Hundreds were arrested and put on trial for charges carrying long sentences or death penalty. Political analysts say support for secession continues to grow as hundreds of thousands demand a breakaway state called Ambazonia. Paul Biya, VOA News, Washington.
Well, thanks a lot, Paul, for that report. Our guests today are on the phone from Yaoundé, Issa Chiroma Bakari. Cameroon's Minister of Communication. Here in studio, we have Eric Chinje, analyst, and Bagasi Kaura, a VOA journalist. And also we're hoping to be joined from Los Angeles by Charles Anchang, who is the CEO of the Immigrant magazine. Welcome to all of you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, now first I want to thank you. I want to go first to Honorable Minister Chiroma. There have been protests in Cameroon, in fact, since the end of the elections, and most of those in the opposition are saying the results were not fair because the election process wasn't free and fair, ostensibly because the government controlled the process. So do they have a legitimate case here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Hello?
Yes.
Hmm?
Minister, did you get my question?
Well, first of all, I would like to express gratitude and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the government. But the connection is far from being what I expect to be, given the importance of this communication. Mm-hmm. But if in the course of this debate, the line goes off, please call me back, because the network is very poor. Mm-hmm. Now, after having said that, the election took place. All the necessary conditions have been brought together in order to organize the free, fair, and equal opportunity given to all the contenders, all the competitors. Yes, you have some of competitors, in particular, the lecturer of university, Professor Kamto, who denied, reject the result, and self-proclaimed himself as the elected president, and he made a comment that I wouldn't like to come back to what he said. But as far as the government is concerned, we think that this is the speech delivered by, excuse me, a daydreamer. Because it is impossible, I say it is impossible, in an election where the contender who arrived first, win the objective. Mm-hmm. Minister Kamto knows it very well. And, hello, can you hear me?
I hear you. And
yes, I was saying that it is impossible, and he knows it very well.
Minister,
he denied the result, but he could not produce any grounded and well-documented proof to assert his position.
But Minister,
the reason why I said that
it wasn't the only one who rejected the results of this election. There were 18 petitions, and they gave actually the argument as to why. They said there were some problems with the process. There were some areas where elections could not take place properly, especially in the Anglophone areas. Also, there were some kind of unclear in areas where it wasn't clear if the ballot was being held in a free and fair manner, given the fact that the electoral system is controlled by the ruling party, by the government. They felt that there was an unfairness in the process, and it wasn't just one person. Those were 18 petitions.
Well, let me suggest this response. Minister Kamto and all other competitors, they know that ELECAN is the independent body entitled by the law to organize the election first. The Constitutional Council is the only institutional body in order entitled to examine and to proclaim results of this election. All of them know it. in particular Minister Kanto, Professor Kanto, knows it very well. In case he suspects ELECAM or the Constitutional Court to be biased against him or the other competitors, he was not obliged to stand for having accepted, despite the fact that those two institutions are, according to his own understanding and position, they are biased against. In full knowledge of this, because this is his statement, I am just repeating what he said. But in full knowledge of this, he accepted to run the election. He accepted the litigation raised during this competition. He took it to the Constitutional Court, and he was there from day one to the end. But he cannot accept the two bodies for the arbitration and organization of the election, and at the end of it, he said no, he denied, he rejected, and he said that some member of the two used to be the CPDM militant. There is something which is wrong somewhere.
Okay. Honorable Minister, let me also get Eric Chinge's thought here. You see, Eric, one of the things that some have accused the opposition members of in some cases is actually going to an election knowing fully well that there are no institutions that can guarantee a free and fair election. So in the case of Compton or the other presidential candidates, is that the biggest crime?
You know, I totally agree with what the minister said. They went into the elections knowing exactly what to expect, okay? But I totally also agree that you could not expect an outcome that would favor anybody else but the incumbent. So you see, this is the tricky situation in which, in the context in which these elections took place. You know, the opposition had a chance to field a single candidate. Then they would have had the possibility of monitoring the elections in a much better way than they could. But I don't think the opposition, you know, what we needed were people who could rise above the individual, ego-driven need to project themselves.
Yeah.
That's what we needed on the side of the opposition. On the side of the government, obviously, the government would want to stay in power. That should have been well known. The government would use every possibility to stay in power. That is well known. It happens even here in America. But what we all hoped was that the Constitutional Court in Cameroon would stand in spite of all the obvious weaknesses that were pointed out by the opposition leaders. We all hoped that the Constitutional Court would rise above partisan politics.
But under the current constitution of the country, the Constitutional Court is not above the executive. I mean, technically, in as much as theoretically.
But when it comes to declaring the results of the elections, they stand above everybody else because beyond them, there's only God. It's not even the president. So kind of Cameroonians hoped that would happen. It didn't happen, but it's too late to complain. So, you know, we have a situation where I wouldn't spend a minute, if I had the chance, on these elections. I think we had the outcomes that we had to have. I'd spend time on the future.
Now, Bagassi,
what is going to happen beyond this?
Exactly. Bagassi, you're a reporter, you're on the ground, and your job is to observe and report on what's going on. What did you see in terms of the playing field, the opposition's chances in terms of being able to communicate their message to the masses through public events, through press conferences? What was your observation as you were there?
What I saw and what I heard is that for the first time, the opposition has been able to mobilize much more people, much more younger people. There were a lot of thousands of people at a rally for Maurice Kamto or for Cabral Libi, who are latecomers in the field of this presidential business. But what I saw also is that the ruling party had all its events live on national television. What I saw is that opposition candidates sometimes have to hold press conferences in places very tiny who cannot, receive all the journalists who want to participate. What I saw is also presidential candidates like Cabral Libi complaining that Elekam will not let some of the observers be in polling places in Cameroon and also in the diaspora. So there has been some complaint, and as it's been mentioned before, maybe these are issues that should have been taken care of before the election to challenge the institution who will be running the election before people go in, because as what has not been mentioned here is that Elekam does not count the votes. Elekam organize and then it move on to an administrative body that count the vote, where opposition, I think, has little to say, and then it moved to the constitutional court, where most of the people have been chosen by the president. So it's like you are part of a process. At some point, somebody else take over, and then, by the time there is a result, and you have to accept.
So you can't even just accuse Elekam for all that.
We are saying all that. Yeah. Nobody's saying that even if things were right, Paul Biya will lose. But because it's a machine, he's been around for a long time. He has all these government means to make campaign, to convince people. He has also some results, because he's been ruling, he brought security.
He has something to show.
He has something to show, which other people don't have. But what people are complaining about is, why can't we have a process like we have seen in several other African countries where things go smoothly and everybody agree that we lost or we won, and it's
some
fine,
African countries still many problems in
several countries.
Charles Chang, I don't know if we have him ready in Los Angeles in our studios there. Charles and Chang, are you up? Welcome. Yes, welcome to Africa, to Straight Talk Africa, mixing up things. Now, here you just listened, hopefully, to Minister Chiroma and also Eric Chinj and my colleague here in studio. And the issue here is it about going to the election and then later complaining, or should actually the opposition in Africa focus more on making sure that there is a favorable environment, that there are institutions that can guarantee a free and fair election before going to an election, and then you spend a lot of time, an inordinate amount of time, whining and screaming and protesting about a bad result or the unexpected result. Expected, in fact.
Thank you very much. I think you nailed it. The opposition leaders, the leadership in opposition, they have to learn how to work together. They have to learn how to bring the people together and organize themselves better, and also work at helping the institutions be straight before they participate. Because the way Cameroon has been forever has been mostly run by a one man and one party. So for us to be able to challenge that, the people have to organize themselves better and forge a system that will permit some level of transparency, equitable participation, and complete involvement of the different institutions.
Okay. I want to go to Minister Chiroma in Yaoundé. Now, Honorable Minister, it has been observed that in any country where one particular person has been in power for too long, however well-intentioned he is, and of course he does use the power and the advantage of incumbency to continue extending his rule, but eventually, when he gets out of power by some way or other, those countries have ended up actually being plunged into chaos, because there is a kind of a danger in having a one-man show for generations. Is that something that is of concern to the ruling elite in Cameroon, that beyond Paul Biya, the country could be in trouble because of not preparing it for that transition?
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I would like to say hi to Eric Kinge, my brother, my friend. And I agree with his analysis. And he said that all the members of the opposition, they were ego-driven people. What our people wanted them to do? First of all, let me emphasize the fact that I am not a member of the ruling party. I am not a member of the CPDM. Eric Kinge, my friend, knows it very well. Okay. What Cameroonian wanted? Cameroonian wanted the 8 members of the opposition who were running for the presidency to present just one candidate to stand against President Biya. Even in this case, let me underscore one thing. To have 25,000 polling stations, 25,000. And according to the law, the how we call it, the code, electoral code that manages the presidential election, each candidate has the right to have 3 representatives, 1 inside and 2 others outside, in case any need be, according to our presidential electoral code. This means that for your claim to be honest, valid, you are supposed to have 75,000 people all over the nation to represent you and to produce all the electoral tallies in order to justify. The other thing I would like to mention is that as far as the Minister Kanto is concerned, 3 days before the election takes place, the manager of his election summoned the press and announced that they are convinced that they are going to win and they are the winner of this election. And they are ready, happen what may, even if they have to pay their own blood, they will do whatever it takes in order to secure.
Honorable Minister, if I may stay with you for a minute, if we go beyond Kamto and just think about the Cameroonians, think about the nation of Cameroon today and tomorrow and into the future. My question was, is there concern? Do you hear, you're closer to power there, that there's concern about what the future of Cameroon would look like after Paul Biya? Because you talked about ego, but I think politicians are full of egos. That's a fact. Do you see any kind of desire to change things, including the Constitution, to create institutions which, in the future, when Paul Biya is not there and his party is not in power, would also give them a fair playing ground so that nobody complains about the election results?
Well, no doubt that President Biya, who is a wise man, he knows that he is not eternal. He knows it very well. And his willingness, his commitment is to organize himself and the government in such a way that at due time, I don't know when, for the time being, he has 7 years to go, according to our constitution and the will of the people. But what he has in mind, he knows that he is not eternal. Day in, day out, one day, we have to organize this nation in order to enable very talented, competent men and women to take over without chaos, that, as you said. Yeah. We know it, and he knows it very well. He knows it very well. But let time unfold, and we are going to see how this will happen, how this will take place. For the time being, we are talking about the result of this election. And all of those who are contesting, all of those who are denying, decrying the organization and the result, they are what we call in French the mauvais perdants.
Okay, Minister.
I want Mr. Inge to translate this.
Actually, exactly. I also wanted to get Mr. Chinje in here. Eric, you know, as the Minister said, President Paul Biya is a wise man. But at the end of the day, President Biya is 85 years old. Cameroon is full of young men, including people like you, relatively young. He's going to be probably 92 when he's done with this term. Can you, at this point, really in any way make a case that Cameroon needs to be ruled by the president who is over 85 years old or 85 years old and over? Is that in any way a reflection of the kind of leadership that Cameroonians need at this point?
You know, in the lead up to these elections, I was fairly vocal calling on the president not to run again, because I thought it was time to re-energize the leadership of the country. And at 85, it's kind of difficult to re-energize, all right? However well-intentioned. So I've always said that, and I know the minister knows my position. As a matter of fact, you know, one of the reasons I have a lot of respect for Issa Chiroma is because he fought, prior to becoming a member of the government, he fought to get the opposition in Cameroon organized. And it was precisely because he failed to achieve that he said, okay, if these guys can't do it, let me at least work with the government to make sure they can do it. So I continue to have deep respect for Minister Chiroma. But the fact remains that this country needs new leadership, a quality of leadership that it will be, you know, we cannot find with the current system. So I'm still hopeful that now that we have the elections behind us, this president can find a way to inject new dynamism into the leadership of Cameroon. That's why in my last intervention, I said, I am looking to the future. I want to see a Cameroon where our problems are addressed in a manner that resolves them. The Anglophone problem in Cameroon should be resolved. The problem of underdevelopment in the northern part of Cameroon should be addressed. The problem in the east should be addressed. The problem of young people who don't have jobs, which is why so many of them are in the are fueling the crisis in the Anglophone regions. All of these things should be addressed, and if this president cannot address them because he's tired, then we've got a problem in Cameroon.
Okay, I'm going to skip you to LA now. Charles, very quickly in about, let's say, less than a minute, what are your thoughts on that, the future of Cameroon, especially after Paul Biya?
The future of Cameroon after Paul Biya is, in my opinion, is a little scary. We have to organize ourselves as a people. The Anglophone problem of Cameroon has to be resolved. We have to get back on the drawing table with all Cameroonians speaking as Cameroonians. And then we can be able to resolve our issues and have a way forward. Because I don't see how divided and conquered we can move ahead.
Yeah, indeed. You know, we will talk a little more about those issues, but you're tuned into Straight Talk Africa right now. We have more of our discussion in a moment, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
The lyrics could be French,
English,
Portuguese,
Bantu,
Arabic.
It is the beat.
The African beat that counts.
The beat does all the translations.
It cuts across all languages and gives us the understanding that this is the African beat.
It is so distinct
and adhesive.
It binds us together.
African Beat on the Voice of America. For more information, visit our website at www.voanews.com/AfricanBeat.
Well, a reminder that we appreciate all of the audience feedback. Straight Talk Africa streams live every Wednesday on Facebook. And you can also watch us live on your mobile device. Just download the VOA mobile app. Now let's look at what's on tap for next week's program.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, Americans vote in the U.S. midterm elections on November 6th. The poll determines which political party controls Congress and the Senate, as well as many state and local offices. The outcome will impact President Donald Trump's Republican Party agenda. We'll examine what the results mean for America's domestic and foreign policy, particularly as they relate to Africa and Africans. On the next Straight Talk Africa.
Well, today we are discussing the recent presidential elections in Cameroon, which saw incumbent Paul Biya winning another term at age 85. Our guests are Chiroma Bakari, Cameroon's Minister of Communication; Eric Chinje is an analyst; Bagashi Kora, VOA journalist; and Charles Sanchang, CEO of the Immigrant magazine. Now, Bagashi, having spoken to a number of people in Cameroon, there were young people, people of different ages, what were their major concern? And we know that there's some of them who have never known any president except Paul Biya.
Yeah, the main concern you hear after Kamto spoke, everybody was saying, no, we don't want any political fight in this country. We already have crisis in the north and the Anglophone region. Please let accept the result as it is and let move forward, because I think people are a bit used to it, and anything that may look like a change, they don't know what it will bring, you know, and especially having seen political conflict in other countries, how far it has taken them. I think people are really worried that, you know, with all the challenges facing Cameroon, that people, the last thing they want is to create a big fight around election result, as we have seen in Ivory Coast and other places. Yeah, but the succession question is it's a big concern, and what people have been telling me is that maybe nothing is being decided because there is really no one who is above the fray, and that the ruling party, you have so many people who are vying to succeed Paul Biya, and the only way to keep, that's one of the theory, of course, to keep them together is to not open the box. Of course, if anything were to happen or Paul Biya has to resign today, it will go to the president of the Senate, who himself is 80-plus-year-old, and we don't know, you know.
Now, Honorable Minister Chiroma, the question of Amazon, the Anglophone region, of course, has been big across the continent. People have been curious to see where it goes, because when people ask for secession, it's because they have tried and tried and tried and felt that they don't feel like they're treated as a part of that particular country. How best could this be handled so that the people of that region can feel that they're part of Cameroon, and they can have the desire to continue staying in Cameroon as part of Cameroon?
Well, I found the problem in our two Anglophone regions are concerned. Well, it is very painful. It is deplorable. It is painful to see that Cameroonians are turning the guns to kill other Cameroonians. This is very painful, unbearable. But as far as the president is concerned and his government is concerned, we know that through guns, it is impossible to get this problem addressed conveniently. It is impossible. We know it very well. That reason why the head of state put in place any commission. They want all the political leaders, the traditional rulers, the elite, all of them get involved in the process of finding means and ways which will enable us to come together and to get out of this terrible mess. The Cameroon is a collateral victim. The government is a collateral victim. The government is being victimized by those who resorted to guns in order to address a political issue. We have brothers and sisters who claim to be marginalized, who are being treated as second-zone citizens and this and that. President Biya summoned his government, and he said that, first of all, we have to have a framework which will enable us to sit around the table and to discuss.
Honorable Minister.
The framework has to be
Honorable Minister.
The Constitution and the law of the nation, yes?
Honorable Minister, the President has had more than sufficient time to have done this. Why has it taken so long to address the issue of the people of the Anglophone areas? I mean, it's not a problem that started today. All these claims, all these charges have been there for many years.
Why is another issue? Now we have a hot potatoes in our hand, and we have to address it. When you make a retrospective, why didn't we do or didn't we do this and that? This is other aspect of this problem. Now we have a problem that we have to address. We have to solve this problem through dialogue, consultation, and negotiation. There is no any other way to address and to solve this problem.
Okay.
He knows it, all of us, we know it. Now that he received a full mandate and he has all the leverages which will enable us, him and the government, to address this issue, after the swearing in ceremony, after the inauguration, we are going to listen the kind of speech the head of state is going to deliver for his people and for the rest of the world.
Okay.
This is a very thorny issue, and I am convinced that he has it in mind, and this problem has to find within the framework of our laws. This problem has to find a solution.
Well, let me go to Charles in Los Angeles. The minister there is saying, forget about the past. The president has been given a mandate, so the issue of Ambazonia is going to be resolved. In fact, the Anglophone region probably doesn't have to break away into Ambazonia. And so do you, Charles, feel confident that perhaps this time around this issue could be resolved without a resort to violence, the violence that we've been witnessing for the last months?
It is a very delicate situation. I really cry for the people who have been dying and those that are pick up arms and that are trying to fight a government that is way stronger than them. And I pity my brothers and sisters in Cameroon who are hopeless at this point in time. And this problem, I see, could have been resolved from the beginning. It was not so terrible, but the irresponsibility of governance has led to this chaos. It's back to the point where the people were not led properly to where now we are in a dire, desperate situation, and still we've not seen leadership. The people have not seen leadership. So we need people to really take responsibility now, and really get to the communities and really apologize and really call the people with the intention to respect their human rights, to respect their wishes, and also understand that they have a real issue that is a problem of the nation. It's not a problem of a different country. It's a problem. If Cameroonians care for other Cameroonians, they should listen to their problems equally and attend to them. And the president is responsible. He has to take that leadership and really go to his people as a leader. He has not paid attention to his people. How can you lead the people without paying attention to them?
Well, Eric, first, personally, I find it very shameful that we should be talking about a country being divided just by language. You are a Cameroonian. Perhaps there's something else you know that you can tell our viewers. Is it about French and English, or what is really at the core of this issue? And what do you make of the minister's position right now that the president is now in a better place, in a better position to resolve the issue?
Yeah. Two very important things have been said, Vincent. One by the minister saying, going forward, and he's given the president's speech, post-inaugural speech, as the starting point of moving forward, which is excellent. And Charles saying there's a need to face up to what the real problem is. There is a fundamental problem in Anglophone Cameroon that has to be addressed. There are problems across the country. There are economic problems, political, social, and all of that. But there is this very specific problem on the English-speaking side of Cameroon. I speak as an Anglophone Cameroonian who came to deeply understand the nature of marginalization. We've put it on the table a few times, but I can guarantee you a lot of my Francophone brothers in Cameroon do not fully understand what marginalization is all about. And it is this frustration with the inability of the majority to understand and empathize with that minority that is at the heart of the problem. It's not even a language problem.
That's the problem I have, is that how would a country that I would imagine where people share, say, culture, share traditional languages, be actually divided on the lines of foreign languages? English and French and
right, because it's a cultural thing. I mean, you know, English came with a certain superculture, and French came with a certain superculture. And what we're seeing is a clash of two supercultures. And beneath those, there's a crisscrossing of the local cultures. You know, I come from, my traditional culture spans across Cameroon. So, you know, I should not be a party to this. But again, those supercultures are so strong. You know, the judicial system that we've adopted in the Anglophone Cameroons is different from the judicial system in Francophone Cameroon. The educational system is different, you know, and you can go on and on. And these are the pillars of any given society. So, you know, we've got a problem in Cameroon from 1961, when we became one nation with two cultures. There was no effort made to this day to create a bilingual nation, to merge these two. Had we done it back in 61, we would not be talking about a country divided by foreign languages. So we've not done it. So my hope is this going forward, post-inauguration of the next president, staying president, but beyond that, that Mr. Biya will see Cameroon put in place initiatives that would move this country together. It is, we're in such a delicate place right now. I interact with Anglophones, and we've gone from what was a small group, you know, almost minuscule group of people complaining about wanting independence for Anglophone Cameroon, to a situation where virtually I don't know of any Anglophone Cameroonian who would rather maintain the status quo.
Actually, Bagas, you had a point you wanted to make.
So right now, as we can see, the Anglophone issue is a big issue in Cameroon. But, you know, when you have an election, that's where you discuss some of the major issues, and it's been almost absent on this campaign. You know, the ruling party didn't emphasize much on the Anglophone case. The opposition merely had to mention we will do some dialogue and bring everybody on the table. And then on election, we can see by the numbers, there was a very, very low turnout in some of the Anglophone part of the country, like sometimes 5% in some part of the Anglophone countries. So although it's a major issue, it's look like Cameroonians maybe have missed some kind of opportunity to debate fully the Anglophone issue during the election.
Exactly. Now, Minister Chiroma, you know, there is always that issue of the elder man in Africa. We have a culture where we respect and revere our elders, and one of the things that has been observed in Cameroon is that the ministers and those around President Biya seem to be so beholden to the older man. The question people ask is he capable of listening to others? Can he actually take advice from anybody, given that he is who is a very powerful man, very feared and respected man?
Well, when the problem erupted, when the problem arose, I was one of those who thought that there was no Anglophone problem, but the problem is, even if there were frustration, they are economically based frustration. But when the lawyers, the teachers, and all others spoke out their mind and brought to our knowledge that there are problems which are not linked to the economic aspect of the nation, I am one of those who apologize, and I say that, well, there is a problem. Let me give you an example. According to our own constitution, there is a provision which makes it mandatory. All the documents issued by the government shall be written in both languages. Unfortunately, for a good deal of time, this has not been the case. when this was brought to the knowledge of the head of state himself and all the other members of the government, including the dismantlement of the government, we said that there is something which is wrong here. And this problem has to be addressed immediately. But unfortunately, some of them could not be addressed overnight. That reason why the government is obstructed and all the members of the government. Now, how to settle the issue? On behalf of the government, I say that the government is open. Is open. Are you frustrated? Okay, where? And let us come together and to find means and ways
now,
to address this frustration.
Honorable Minister, you know, when people are willing to die, for a cause, it means there is something that is so important to them. And as they say, there's that expression, is the person who wears the shoe who knows where it pinches more. The people of the Anglophone area have shown that they're willing to die. There has been this militancy, but the government has also hit back and clamped down on the militants there. Is the government willing to declare a ceasefire on its side and say, come to the table, we're willing to listen and resolve whatever issues that are there, and we don't have to resort to fighting? Is the government willing to put down their weapons?
Well, this does not fall within my responsibility and the scope of action. I am a spokesperson of the government. Yeah. I just bring to the knowledge of the world what is the position of the government as far as this aspect of the problem is concerned. Yeah. Let us, after the inauguration of the head of state, we are going to listen his policy, his vision.
Yeah.
Our brothers and sisters who are taken hostages in the two regions by a handful of extremists, violent extremists, and you say that they are ready to die. No, they are not going to die. The government will not let them die. And you said if the government is ready to proclaim a ceasefire. I don't know. I am just a minister. I don't know what the head of state has in mind. But the continuity, the physical integrity of our nation falls within the responsibility of our army, the government, and the head of state himself. What I can say on behalf of the government, there is no question which is taboo except the cessation. The government is not ready to accept the amputation, the split of the nation.
But
the nation,
Minister,
including your brothers and sisters who are in the two regions, all of us, we are ready to come together.
But you know, Mr. Minister, there is
no problem whatsoever.
Mr. Minister, in any region of the world where people have fought for secession, including South Sudan, which is the most recent case, it's because they felt that the central government, the bigger part of that country, did not accord them the same respect, the same dignity as the rest of those of the country. So the people of the Anglophone definitely must feel like they have been cut off from the central government to want to secede. Nobody wants to leave their country. Nobody wants to be separate, except when there are some extreme cases, isn't it?
Yes, I said that a handful of people, they have already made up their religion, they have already made up their mind, but they will be confronted with a resolution bigger that they have in mind. Let us understand that through dialogue, and we have to compromise to know that, and this aspect, it is possible together to move forward. But this is the red line. This is the Rubicon that it is not possible to cross.
Mm-hmm.
So when people of good will sit around the table, it is always possible to find solution within a framework that I have mentioned at the beginning of our conversation.
Let's listen to Charles Chang in L.A. The minister there is saying the secession issue is not such a big issue. Those who are agitating, those who actually will literally have taken up arms, it's just a bunch of, a few agitators. It's not a big issue, and that there is no way Cameroon will be divided. Do you agree?
I beg to, it's a very delicate situation because for too long already, they have not been able to manage these people that took up arms. And there's chaos in the northwest and southwest, and there's been really no governance. And that is very delicate because the people have no leadership or from the so-called terrorists, and they have no leadership from the government. So it's total chaos, which is unacceptable. So the first thing that needs to be done, the leadership has to recognize the problem the people are requesting to be resolved. Mm-hmm. So they have to go, those political leaders that have been retained, all those people that are in jail, the political prisoners that were wrongly imprisoned, they need to be released so that the people could find some peace and come to the table and speak with some dignity and respect.
But I'm hearing
it's really
something.
Important.
What I hear you saying is that both sides have gotten it wrong, both on the government side, even for those who are calling for the secession. So you get a sense that perhaps the formula in the past has not been correct, right?
Yes, yes.
All right.
It's not correct. The leadership is the problem we're dealing with in Cameroon.
Okay. Let's have Eric chime in on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could agree more with Charles. I mean, there's a problem. There's a problem of leadership. I mean, when we bring this back to the door of the President of the Republic, is because we, the kind of leadership that has evolved in Cameroon has come up to this individual who controls all aspects of life. When Mr. President refused to even contemplate the notion of a federation, nobody around him wanted to contemplate that. And we would rather go to war than accept the notion of a federation, which, by the way,